Okay, problem number 1, you needed to add an exponent of 1 on this first y over here because it didn't have a number on it. Since there's no parentheses involved, I am going to add the exponent. So that is the same as y to the 1 plus 4 plus 9 plus 0, which is equal to 9 to the 14th power. All right, number 2. The guys in the first set of parentheses over here, right here, are just kind of hanging out waiting to see what this little power of 3 is going to do. So what I need to do is first distribute this power of 3 through to everything. So this 5x squared is going to stay right where it is. And negative 2 to the third power is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which gives me negative 8. And x to the fourth to the third power gives me x12. Okay, simplifying even further, I can see that I should multiply my 5 and my negative 8, which gives me negative 40. And then I'm adding my exponents. 2 plus 12 gives me 14. And that is my final answer. Number 3, I do not see any exponents on the outsides of the parentheses there. So basically, the parentheses are doing me absolutely no good at all. I don't need them. So you have one of two options. You can rewrite the whole thing. You can scribble them out if you want to, if that helps you. Or option 3 is just completely ignore them. All right, so I am going to first multiply my coefficients. 4 times 2 gives me 8. And then here I've got x squared, x negative 3, and x5. And if I add 2 plus negative 3 plus 5, that is going to give me 4. So I've got x to the 4th power. And then I'm going to add up my y. I have y squared, y to the 8th, and y to the 3rd. That is going to give me y to the 13th. And that is my final answer. All right, so first of all, we have a couple of fractions here that we're multiplying. The first thing I want to do is I want to go across the top, then I'm going to go across the bottom, and then finally I'm going to simplify. So first off, along the top, I've got 8 times 3, which gives me 24. Then I've got an x and an x here, so x times x gives me x squared. And then I've got a y3 and a y2, which is going to give me a y5. On the bottom, I have a couple of numbers that I need to multiply here. 2 times 2, which is going to give me 4. And then I have an x squared in this one, but no x's on the next one, so I'm just going to leave that as x to the 4th. And then I've got the same situation going on with my y's, where I only have y's on the right side. All right, so now that I've taken care of the numerator and the denominator, I'm going to simplify. So right here, 24 divided by 4 gives me 6. Let's make that a little longer in case I need it. Okay, so now I'm looking at my x's, and I need to figure out who is winning the war of the x's. So let's look at these guys. So I've got 2 up on top, 4 on the bottom. I can see the bottom wins by 2. And the war of the y's, the top has 5, the bottom has 3, so the top wins by 2. And that is your final answer. All right, so when you have something like this, it's best to rewrite it and apply the exponent to the top and the bottom. So I'm simply going to rewrite this as 2 separate pieces, a to the 9th, b to the negative 2. So I'm just copying exactly what's here, and I'm going to put that to the 3rd power. Then I have to do the same to the bottom. So I'm going to put parentheses around the bottom as well, the denominator. 2a to the 6th, b to the 2nd, but then I also have to put that to the 3rd power because this 3rd power here is applying to both the top and the bottom. All right, so let's distribute that through. So I'm going to distribute that 3 all the way through. So a to the 9 times 3 gives me a 27. And b to the negative 2 times 3 gives me b to the negative 6. And then finally on the bottom, don't forget to distribute it to your constants. 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 8 to the 6 to the third power is 6 times 3, which is 18. And then b squared is 2 times 3, which is 6. All right, so now I have to simplify. Looks to me like this 8 isn't going anywhere on the downstairs, so it's just going to stay down there. There's nothing to simplify with it on the top. All right, looking at my A's, I got 27 on top, 18 on the bottom. That means the top wins by 9. Okay, so don't let this negative exponent, don't think that this is going to equal 0, because it doesn't. Don't think those cancel, because they don't. So b to the negative 6. Don't forget we have to subtract our exponents when we have one on top and one on bottom. So I've got b to the negative 6 minus 6, which is actually b to the negative 12. Okay, so I've got b to the negative 12 here. Except what do we know about negative exponents? We talked about negative exponents. If I have something that has a negative exponent, I have to put it on the bottom. So if it starts on top, it goes down. If it starts on the bottom, it goes up. This one is going to stay on top because I started with b to the negative 6 and I subtracted. So I started at the top. So my final answer is going to be this downstairs. So everything else is going to stay the same. So a to the 9th over 8b to the 12th. That was kind of a tricky one. Okay, don't see anything weird about this one at all. I don't see any parentheses or exponents or nothing. So I'm simply going to add my exponents, or subtract in this case because it's a fraction, and then reduce if I need to. All right, so first thing I see is I've got 4 divided by 16. All right, so that both of those are divisible by 4. So that's going to give me 1 over 4. And you can do that part in your calculator. Just make sure that you don't flip it around and put the 4 on the top. All right, then I'm looking at my k's. Got k squared on top, k to the 5th on the bottom. Looks like the bottom wins by 3. And then m to the 0 and m to the 3. So I'm going to use my, since m to the 0 is really 1, that cancels out to be 1, the bottom is winning by 3 m's. The bottom actually has 3 more m's than the top, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that there because this crosses out, that equals 1. So this is your final answer. All right, so similar to that last one, I'm going to split this up into numerator and denominator. So I'm going to write exactly what's here, exactly on the top, negative 3x squared y cubed. All I did is copy that to the 2nd power. And then I need to copy the denominator, x to the negative 3, y squared. But then I also need to put that to the 2nd power because as we discussed earlier, that 2 with the parentheses on all of it means that applies to the top and the bottom. All right, so now I have to distribute. So let's not forget this guy. So negative 3 times negative 3 gives me positive 9. X squared to the 2nd power, x to the 4th. And y cubed to the 2nd power gives me y to the 6th. I have to multiply those exponents. All right, so let's keep going. X to the negative 3 times 2 gives me x to the negative 6. Y squared squared, y to the 2nd power gives me y to the 4th. All right, let's simplify it up. The 9 is going to stay on the top because there's nothing else to simplify. So looking at these guys, I need to subtract those. So 4 minus, I'm going to go over here to the side, 4 minus negative 6, that's actually going to become positive 10 because 2 negatives make a positive. So that's going to give me back over here, I'm going to have x to the 10th. That's what these guys reduce to. 4 minus negative 6 gives me x to the 10th. And then looking at my y's, I can see that y to the 6th over y to the 4th. Y wins by 2. So 9x10y2 is your final answer. All right, I see a parenthesis with an exponent, so that means I have to do that first. So distributing that through, make sure you get that -4 in there. -4 times -4 is positive 16. X cubed to the second power, I have to multiply. That gives me x to the 6th. And y1, I can stick a 1 on there if I want to, and I multiply those. Y1 times 2 gives me 2. And then I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, because I'm going to have to now simplify what I've got. All right, if you wanted to, you could take this x to the -2 and move it to the bottom right now. I'm just going to go ahead and add them up and see what happens. All right, so that's your choice. All right, so first I got to do is I got to multiply 16 times 3. That's going to give me 48. All right, so I got x to the 6th and x to the -2, so I have to add the exponents. 6 plus -2, that's going to give me positive 4. And then y2, y3, that's going to give me y to the 5. And that is your final answer. All right, number 9. Okay, again, going to have to rewrite this guy. A squared, b4, all to the second power. Then I've got a squared, b squared. I'm sorry, that doesn't have a square on it, does it? Okay, so that's a good thing that I caught that, because I would have got the wrong answer if I had kept going. Okay, a times b squared, there we go, to the second power. Again, because this 2 is on the outside of the parentheses, everything on the inside is to the second power, so I have to put it upstairs and downstairs. All right, distributing that through, that's going to give me a to the 4th. That's going to give me b to the 8th. And on the bottom, I'm going to put a 1 here. 2 times 1 is 2, so that's a to the 2 power. And that's going to give me b to the 4 power. Simplifying, War of the A's. Looks like upstairs wins by 2. And War of the B's. Looks like upstairs wins by 4. So that is your final answer. Okay, explain how to determine if you will add the exponents of a variable together or you will multiply. So you could say this in words, or you could give me an example. So if you multiply, let's see, let's give an example of multiplication. So when there's parentheses, so a squared to the 3rd power gives me a to the 6th. That means or a to the 2 times 3, which is a to the 6th. You add your exponents when it looks like this. A squared times a to the 3rd. So that would be equal to a to the 2 plus 3, which is equal to a to the 5th. Okay, so look for those parentheses because that's when you multiply. That's the rule. Okay, find the sum or difference. Notice there's a plus sign in the middle there. So I'm not multiplying anything through. I'm not doing any distributing unless there's a negative out front, which we're going to do in the next example. But I'm just adding this stuff together. So with that positive sign out front, I really don't need those parentheses there. So I can just rewrite this whole thing without the parentheses if you need to. Some of you may not need to do this extra work. Okay, so I'm just rewriting exactly what I see there. Okay, now I'm going to look for some like terms. I've got negative x squared plus 3x squared, which gives me 2x squared. All right, and I see an x here and a positive 4x here, so I'm going to slip a 1 in there so I don't forget to add 1 plus 4. And then finally, I've got some constants with no x's. 2 plus 5 is 7, and that is your final answer. All right, moving down, number 12. Oops, lost it. Let me get it back up here really quickly. All right, there it is. Okay, so this time I have something a little bit different going on because I have a negative out here, so I'm going to slip in a -1 there. Because of that -1, I'm going to have to distribute that all the way through. Up above, there was a +1 up there, which really, I couldn't distribute if I wanted it to, but it really wouldn't change anything because positives don't affect. Okay, so this guy has, if you want, you can put a positive 1 out there, but that's not going to change anything. Like I just said, positive 1s don't do any damage. Negative 1s, though, are going to change everything on the inside of the parentheses. So whatever's in here, if it's positive, it's going to be negative, and vice versa. So this happens to be negative 1 times positive 4. That's going to be negative 4x squared. Negative 1 times negative 5. Two negatives make a positive, so be careful with that. And negative 1 times positive 6 gives me negative 6. So now I'm back to combining my like terms. So I've got an x squared minus 4x squared. That gives me negative 3x squared. Positive 3x plus 5x gives me plus 8x. And then I've got a negative 1 minus 6. That's going to give me minus 7 or negative 7. And there is your final answer. All right, looks like I've got some distributing to do here. I've got a 4 out front. That means that's got to go through. I've got a negative 1x here. I'm going to put a 1 there. That's got to go through there. Okay, so 4 times x squared gives me 4x squared. 4 times negative 3 gives me negative 12. Okay, I've got to be careful with this negative here. Negative x, or negative 1x, times 2x is going to give me negative 2x squared. And negative 1x times 6 is minus 6x. All right, so this one's a little bit different, but nothing big. Here's my like terms that I can see so far. 2x squared, 4 minus 2 gives me 2. And then doesn't look like this 6x, this negative 6x, has a buddy to pair up with, so it's going to stay the same. And same situation with the negative 12. He's got to stay all alone. So that is your final answer. All right, down below, number 14, kind of the same situation. I can see that I have a positive sign in the middle here. Okay, so that is not going to affect. If I put a positive 1 out there and multiply that through, it doesn't really do anything. So I really don't actually need these parentheses around here at all. So I am going to just scribble them out because they are not necessary. If you want, you can go ahead and rewrite it, but for time's sake, I am just going to pretend that they're not there. All right, so looking at my terms, I see a 15x squared minus 8x squared, which gives me 7x squared. I've got a positive 2x and a negative 2x. So because they have opposite signs, one's positive, one's negative, those are actually going to cancel each other out. All right, and then finally, I've got positive 6 plus 3, which gives me positive 9. And my final answer is going to be 7x squared plus 9. All right, looking at number 15, the work below contains a mistake. So if you remembered, if you're looking at this, if you remember to slip your 1 in here, you can see that they made an error right here where 3 minus 1 is certainly not 3. So the correct answer should be not that, it should be 2x cubed minus 4x. This looks correct, and this also looks correct, plus 6. So that should be the final mistake. And then down here, you could describe in words the error that was made right there. All right, this work below contains a mistake. This one was a little bit harder to catch, not going to lie. This part right here, the x squared terms, or I'm sorry, x cubed terms look okay. But if you look closely, this guy has a power of 2, and this guy actually has a power of 1, so you cannot put those together. So your final answer should have been 5x cubed plus 6x squared minus 4x plus 12. All right, product rule. Multiplying through x squared plus 11x, and then on the next level I've got plus 3x plus 33, and then of course you're going to combine your like terms. Those are going to be the ones in the middle. So your final answer, x squared plus 14x plus 33. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and do this next one in my head really quickly. That's going to give me 35x squared. That's going to give me 14x, but then I'm going to have to take away a 5x. So 14 minus 5 is going to give me 9x. And then on the end, I'm going to have minus 2. Okay, here we go. So a little bit more complicated, but nothing we can't handle. That's going to give me 2x cubed plus x squared minus 10x. That's going to give me plus 10x squared. So making sure you're lining up your squareds with your squareds. Don't put this guy. Make sure that these powers are lining up. All right, so going on, keep on going. 5 times x is plus 5x. And 5 times negative 10 is minus 50. Adding them up, 2x cubed plus, I'm going to slip a 1 in there, 11x squared. And minus 5x minus 50. Final answer. All right, same thing or similar. That's going to give me 3x cubed minus 5x squared plus 4x negative 6x squared. Negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10. Watch your negatives and positives. Positive 10x, I should say. And that's going to give me negative 8. So I've got 3x cubed minus 11x squared plus 14x minus 8. Final answer. Okay, so if you remember, this 2 on the outside means I got to write this thing 2 times. All right, so let's do it. X squared, x times x is x squared. X times 3 gives me 3x. Moving to this guy, 3 times x gives me another 3x. And 3 times 3 gives me 9. Combining the like terms in the middle, I get x squared plus 6x plus 9. All right. So these are, we're supposed to add all the blocks together, so I have to add these together, and then I'm going to combine like terms, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the vertical. So I've got a couple of x's here, so that gives me 2x. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 1, so plus 3, so that's my first factor. And then over here I've got a single x. And then I got a couple of 1s here, so that's going to be plus 2. So now I've got distributing through 2x squared plus 4x. That's 2x squared, that's plus 4x. That's going to give me plus 3x plus 6. Combining your like terms in the middle, you get 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. All right, similar problem. Looks like I got 2 x's up here, so 2x plus 2. And same thing down here. I've got 2 x's plus 2. And when you multiply that through, you should get 4x squared. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the final answer, plus 8x plus 4. Okay, so finally, this is not on your review, but I want to cover it because it's going to be on your test. All right, so in this instance, you need to understand that the power of 0 here is only being applied to the x. So that's the same as saying 3 times 1 to the 0, which is the same as 3 times 1, because anything to the 0 power is 1, which is equal to 3. This, on the other hand, this power of 0 is being applied to both of those things. So that is going to, I'm going to put a little 1 here. That is going to be 3 to the 1 times 0, which is, we'll get to that in a second, x to the 1 times 0. So that simplifies as 3 to the 0 power, because 1 times 0 is 0, and x to the 0 power, which is written like that, 1 times 0 is 0. So 3 to the 0 is 1, x to the 0 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. Final answer. All right, that's it for the review. Good luck on the test tomorrow.